Hey you guys, welcome to Localite. Today we're discussing beer, Sail Brewery, and we actually have Irene Firmat. She's the CEO and co-founder of Sail Brewing. So, pleasure to have you on.
Thank you for having me.
It's nice to meet you.
Thank you.
So I had an opportunity a while back to sit down and just kind of chit-chat with Jamie and the Brewmaster and learn some stuff there, but I understand you're going to fill us in even some more. So let's talk about when you first started. You guys started in one of the old diamond fruit plants, which you're still at now. Obviously, it's gone under a lot of renovations. But when you guys found that place and went in, I mean, it was abandoned pretty much. I mean, stuff was still on the walls. And
it had been abandoned, I think, for about 15 years. And it was a whole slew of buildings. I mean, it was the buildings that we're in now, the Columbia building where Decine is, the buildings on the parking lot, plus a whole bunch of other buildings. And really, the room we took over was the press room that they had been making fruit juice in. And the place the pub is at was the locker room. And so when we first came in, and it was a lot of sweat equity. It was hard to get investors to believe in craft beer back then. Started taking lockers down. And when we started taking lockers down, you could see people had just still left stuff. So it had this sense of being sort of this fog of the past still lingering. And it really gave us a sense of continuity about what we were doing and the fact that we were able to sort of reuse this building.
Yeah.
And, so we really like that part of where we are in Hood River.
Great. And that was in 87?
That was in 87, yes.
Okay. And you chose Hood River, why? I mean, I would think that Portland would be a little bit more conducive with breweries, especially back then, but maybe not.
Well, we thought it was too conducive, actually. There were already two breweries, Widmer and Bridgeport, and a third was on its way, and really thought there's no way Portland will handle a fourth. We were a little wrong on that one, you know, but we also thought, wow, we hit it under the wire. We're going to be the fourth and last brewery in Oregon. And we were actually not too right about that one, which we're thrilled about. And I think part of it for us was we love Hood River, we love the location, the romance of all the orchards and the river and all that. And from a practical point of view, the Port of Hood River and all the people involved in bringing economic and job development were incredible partners for us. Okay.
Well, was your background in brewing? Brewing?
Brewing?
Yeah.
Drinking beer. But I was a buyer for a department store, Meyer & Frank.
Okay.
So a little different background.
Yeah. So how did that transition occur?
Well, I was working for Meyer & Frank, which is part of a big Fortune 500 company, and after a while I got kind of frustrated with all the push for hitting quarterly numbers for a public company and doing a lot of short-term decisions that really didn't make sense for the long term. And so I knew I wanted to run my own business and run it differently with a lot more long term. And I also wanted to run a company that had more values about how you treat people, because I really think that people are what really drives a company.
Absolutely.
And if you don't treat it that way, it's not going to happen that way. So owning your own business allows you to do those things.
Yeah, which we'll talk about a bit in the second segment, that you guys are an employee-owned company and what exactly that means and why that's so close to your heart. But I want to talk a little about the transition from a cannery into a brewery and what that must have been like.
Well, you know, it's interesting. It was a good place to be because fundamentally it was a food manufacturing facility, and beer is a food manufacturing facility. So a lot of the infrastructure was there, and we just really built on what was there and usable and then added on to it.
Okay.
And we love the location. I mean, we must have the best view in town, you know?
Yeah, I know. So, I've sat up there many times and had a brew out on your deck, and even when the weather's not so great, it's still, you've got that perfect setup inside, and really a good spot there. So what were some of the ups and downs? I mean, there's been many, I'm sure, but what are some of the ones that really stand out?
Well, I think part of it was just getting financing in the first place. It took us over 3 years, because back when we used to go and tell people, well, we have this idea, we want to build a brewery, the comment was, why? You know, there's 3 perfectly good breweries, you know, Anheuser-Busch, Miller, and Coors. Why do you need more?
Yeah.
And so convincing people when you're that early on to a trend, it was challenging. So getting the financing finally after 3 years was amazing. And then I think just the day we opened was a sense of accomplishment and exhilaration. It also was a day where it was a very slow news day, so the 3 stations in Portland covered it and gave the impression that beer was free for anybody who came. and we had over 800 people come that day.
Really?
And we were behind the bar pouring beer, and we thought it was going to be an intimate event, just family and friends, and it was all these people we didn't know, and we could see the sight line on the beer tank just go and go.
You're like, we're going to run out.
We're going to have problems here. So finally we said, well, that's it for free beer, and started charging. And
yeah.
It was a good idea.
Yeah, I bet. Well, so were microbrews and microbreweries, were they very popular in the 80s?
No, I mean there was really two. There was Fritz Maytag had Anchor Steam in California and Sierra Nevada in Northern California.
Okay.
And they were from the 70s and 80s. So really all the birth of craft brewing really started like in the mid-1980s. Okay. And very few, I mean there was maybe 10 of us at the early 90s. So really this sort of explosion is a relatively new thing in our perspective. So.
Okay. And there was only 4 employees, including yourself.
There were only 4 of us, and we kind of did everything. And, you know, there were days where you brewed, you bottled, I'd go up and pay bills, and then I'd go bartend in the pub, you know, and it was really fun in a lot of ways, even though it was very hard work, because you knew the business from every level, and that was exciting.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah. So the pub and tasting room there.
It was very much of a tasting room, yeah.
Okay. And that was from the beginning?
From the beginning we had it open, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, great. Well, obviously you've come a long ways since 4 employees back in the 80s. And so we'll talk more about some of the things that you guys are doing and some of the changes that you guys have gone through. And so we're discussing beer. Sail Brewery here on Localite. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.